Hey, how you guys doing? I am going to try to create a video for Trig. Anyways, no guarantees it's going to be great, but I'm going to give it a try. Okay, so let's go back and remember that when we do Trig, it's just about relationships. A relationship between the angle and the sides. Sine is all about the opposite and the hypotenuse. And if it's not the opposite and it's not the hypotenuse, it must be the adjacent. And we simply said that sine was the opposite leg divided by the hypotenuse. So that would be 27 divided by 45. And if we did cosine, that's the adjacent leg. Ooh, that really looks bad. Let me go back and erase that. Let me try again. All right, so sine is the opposite leg, 27 over 45. Adjacent is 36 over 45. That is cosine. And tangent is the opposite leg, 27 over the adjacent leg, which is 36. And again, all of these numbers could be reduced very easily by 9. And we get 3 over 5, 4 over 5, and 3 over 4. And remember, these are just numbers. They're fractions. And the sine, cosine, and tangent will give you different numbers. However, when you go back to find the angle, you find that the angles are exactly the same for all three. And that kind of looks like this. Sine of some angle equals 3 over 5. And recall in class we said, hey, if you're going to go back and get the angle, we use the second sine key, take the fraction, put it in, and hit second sine. And we got that the angle was about 36.9. And if this angle is 36.9, then we said, hey, the two acute angles have to add up to 90. So 90 minus 36.9 told me that the other missing angle had to be 53.1. All right, if you are absent, you're totally confused, and there are great videos on Google Classroom. However, if you're in class and you wanted a brief review, there you go. All right. Let's apply this to a word example, okay? A word problem. You want to string a cable across to make a dog run from the two corners of the building as shown. Write and solve the proportion using Trig to approximate the length of the cable you need. All right, so don't freak out, it's a word problem. Look at the problem. Do they give me an angle? Yes, so we're going to focus on that angle. From that angle, we see the right angle here. So we know that this has got to be my dog, the hypotenuse. And then opposite 35 is this side. So that's my opposite. So in this particular picture, they're giving me opposite and hypotenuse. Now, which trig function is opposite and hypotenuse? Well, that goes back to that saying that we did, some old hippie. And that stands for S, sine. So we can use sine to solve this. Now, it's not a magic trick. You look at what's available in order to decide what it is you're going to use. In this particular picture, they give me opposite and a hypotenuse, so therefore I have to use the sine. All right, and from there, all we have to do is simply set up a proportion. If they give you an angle, you plug it in and use it. And remember, it's just a proportion. The sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. And from there, we can set this over 1 and cross multiply and solve. And we've been doing that a lot lately. All right, 11 times 1 is 11 equals, when we cross multiply, it is sine of 35 degrees times x. To get the x alone, we divide each side by sine of 35 degrees. These cancel out. We get x alone. And this is simply 11 divided by sine 35. Now, 11 divided by sine 35. You put it in your calculator like this. You take 11 divided by, let me see if I can do it on here. I don't know if I can get this calculator to be scientific. There she is. All right, so you're going to do 11 divided by 35, then hit your sine key. That is sine of 35 degrees. But it's not until you hit the equal sign does the magic happen. And we get 19.17 or 19.2. And that's the hypotenuse, right? So it makes sense that the hypotenuse is longer than the side 11. And that's it. Okay. So let's look at the next one. In A, they give me the angle 50 degrees. From 50 degrees, we go opposite. Here's my hypotenuse. So by default, this must be adjacent. Now they're giving me opposite. They want adjacent. So what trig function is opposite and adjacent on acid? Here we go. That's trig, or that's tangent. Tangent of 50 degrees equals opposite 13 over adjacent, which is x. Again, over 1, cross multiply, and solve. 1 times 13 is 13. And this is tangent of 50 degrees times x. To get the x alone, we divide both sides by tangent of 50 degrees. These cancel out. We get x. And this is just a number. Here we go. Take your calculator. Be clear. 13 divided by, again, you put the 50 in first. 50. We want the trigonometric function, which is tangent. That's tangent of 50 degrees, but that's not the answer until we hit the equal key. And we get 10.9. All right. So I'm going to let you practice one on your own. We have 24 degrees. We see the right angle. That makes this the hypotenuse because this is the right angle. That's the hypotenuse. From 24 degrees, this is my opposite. Hypotenuse opposite, that makes this my adjacent. All right, so they're looking for x, which is adjacent. They're giving me, let me erase this so you can see it. They're giving me 9, which is the opposite. So opposite and adjacent, again, is tangent. Do they give me an angle? Yes, we go ahead and use it. Tangent of 24 degrees equals opposite 9 over adjacent x. Cross multiply and solve. You're going to find as you go, if the x is on the bottom, you simply take what's on the top and divide it by what's on the left. It's going to end up being 9 divided by tangent of 24 degrees. So we're going to take our calculator. 9 divided by 24. We want the tangent function. Remember, that's the tangent of 24 degrees, but the calculation doesn't actually happen until you hit equals, and we get this as 20.2. All right. It takes practice and knowing your trig functions. Every time you go to do these assignments, write your trig functions. Some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid. Write them down, and then you're looking at them. You don't have to guess. All right, according to this angle, they're giving me 14, which is opposite. And they're looking for both the adjacent and the hypotenuse. Well, opposite is used with sine, and opposite is used with tangent. So you're going to be using one of these functions. I would start with sine and solve for the hypotenuse first. Okay, opposite hypotenuse is sine. Do they give me an angle? Yes, we're going to plug it in and use it. Opposite is 14. Hypotenuse is b. Cross multiply. Again, we said if your x is on the bottom, take what's on the top and divide it by what's on the left. We end up with 14 divided by sine 57. Calculator, please. I miss you guys. You're supposed to be doing this for me. I don't do this. 14 divided by, the angle is 57. 57. We're using the trig function sine. Remember, this is the sine of 57 degrees. We don't actually get the magic until we hit equals. And now we find out that b is equal to 16.7. B is the hypotenuse, so that should be the longest leg. Now, we can use a trig function to find A, or we could do Pythagorean's theorem. Now, I'm going to show you on the calculator how to do Pythagorean's theorem, and then I'm going to show you how to use trig to find A. All right, so we're given the hypotenuse. So we can take the hypotenuse squared, which is C, 16.2, or that was supposed to be 16.7, right? Let's clear that. 16, this says 16.7, so I must have made a mistake when I copied this down. 16.7 Since it's C, we're going to square it. 16.7 squared. Now we're going to minus A squared plus B squared equals C squared. But if I have C squared, I need to subtract the other. Minus 14 squared, which is 196, equals 82.89. Look up here on your scientific calculator. Squared, 16.7 squared minus 14 squared equals B squared, which is 82.89. Now to get the B by itself, you're going to take the square root, and we get 9.1. Now, do my answers make sense? 16.7 is the hypotenuse. It is the largest. Then comes 14 and 9.1. It makes perfect sense. Now, could I have found A using trig? I could. Once I know that the hypotenuse is 16, and once I know the angle is 57, I could have done adjacent and hypotenuse to find A. And adjacent and hypotenuse would be cosine. So if I have cosine of 57 degrees, it's going to equal adjacent 9.1. I'm sorry, we know it's 9.1. I'm going to pretend like we don't know it's 9.1. We're going to take adjacent divided by hypotenuse. And since the x is on the top, this simply becomes cross multiplication. No dividing necessary. So we're going to do it in our calculator, just that easy. All right, cosine of 57. Do that first. 5, 7. Take the cosine of it. Remember, it's just a number, very small number. Now you're going to times it by 16.7. And voila, we get 9.09, which is 9.1. Exactly what we were expecting to get. So Pythagorean's theorem is useful. Trig is super easy. Really quick, when you set them up, if x is on the top, you simply multiply. If x is on the bottom, and that's what you're looking for, you take what's on the top, in this case 9, and divide it by what's on the left, tangent of 24, and you get your answer. Super easy. When we've practiced 20, 30 of these, it's almost impossible to get them wrong. All right, I am going to stop there and see how you do. All right, bye.